It's a beautiful Thursday morning here in Lagos. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the program. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. It is no longer news that the Islamic movement in Nigeria leader Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaky is now in India for medical care. What is new are the fresh allegations coming from the group here in Nigeria as regards the government compromising the court order that grant him a release to India for medical treatment. The Sheikh wants the treatment done under the supervision of his personal doctors. He's also complained about the security infrastructure around him. He says it appears even worse than where he was kept here in Nigeria. The federal government has reacted. The Indian government, the High Commission, has also responded, saying that that is absolutely not true. I'm joined by National President, Committee for Defense of Human Rights, Malaki Ogumagu. Good morning and thank you for finding time to come on the program today. Tony Ofoeton is a lawyer in the International Institute of Professional Security. Glad to have you come on the show as well.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
What do you think is different from 2016 when government refused to obey court orders? It appears that some would say maybe the protest, the constant protest by the group in Abuja might have forced the hand of government to obey this time. What are your thoughts along this line?
Then my view would be that that is unfortunate. The government, no less the citizens of this country, the institutions of government, state actors, and everyone is under an obligation to obey court orders. Indeed, it is one of the vestiges of a civilized nation, the respect for the rule of law and the judgments and orders of court. In our own case, Section 287 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, makes it mandatory that every judgment of court, every order of court must be respected and enforced by every person, every institution of government, and more particularly by government itself. So there are no rooms for prevarications or double standards or picking and choosing which aspect of the judgment of court that must be respected. So my immediate reaction is that it's unfortunate, a very sad commentary, and I do hope that we'll find ways of exiting some of these very embarrassing, scandalizing situations in our country.
Tony, you recall that in reaction to that court order, the Kaduna state government had also come up with a long list of conditions regarding the release of the Sheikh to India for medical treatment. It appears we've gone past that now, but are you concerned about the claims of deteriorating health in our custodies? Almost every prosecution has had that case. So you take someone to court and then they tell you that they need to travel out of the country to take care of their health. Is there something wrong with our custody? That's one. Is there also something apparently wrong with our healthcare system in this part of the world that makes people trust the Indian hospitals than what we can offer here?
I think the president can answer that question better.
Yes.
The president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is in the best position to answer that question, especially going by the fact that from the beginning of his tenure till date, he has never used any of our local hospitals, not even when he had ear problem, not to talk of when he had major medical issues and had to stay outside the country for a very long time. So if you ask me that question, I would say ask the president why he has not been using our hospitals, and it's been there have been mongoose budgets almost on annual basis. That also tells you the reason why many of those that can afford it are also running outside the country. For El-Zakzaky's case, his own case, the argument was that his medical condition was such that cannot be handled in the country. So which, even though the government doctors came to canvass the argument that we can, but unfortunately it was established that they couldn't. So he has to be flown out of the country for medical attention. But having said so, the fact also remains that El-Zakzaky is presumed to be innocent, but as it is now, he's not a free man. So he should not be expected to be treated like an average, citizen that is, on a medical tourism. The fact remains that it is presumed that he is still in custody. And wherever he is still in custody. So if he's in custody, that means that everything that are attached to being in custody would apply.
So what he got as a form of court order wasn't a bail, as it were?
No, it was not a bail. It was not a bail. It was, one thing about the law is that once you have medical challenge, even without resorting to the court, it is mandatory on the government. It is mandatory, it's automatic that you must be given medical attention. If it cannot be handled at that level, then of course, even without going to court. So taking El-Zakzaky to court on its own, like Malaki said, it shows that we have laid a very defective foundation. You are talking of a government that does not have due regard for the rule of law. Don't forget that there has been a juxtaposition between national security and the rule of law, and which one takes precedence.
We're going to get back to that, but I am concerned about the impact that this health condition has had on justice. We've had delayed cases in court because before they even try what was the concern, why the court was approached in the first place, the accused tells you he needs to travel out first to take care of his own health. How do you see Nigeria solving this very critical issue?
Well, that's a bit tricky, essentially because in the whole gamut of administration of criminal justice, we've always been admonished to recognize that it is not a one-way traffic. It's usually a three-way traffic. Justice for the state who is prosecuting, justice for the accused person who is standing trial, and justice for the victim, who usually is a complainant and against whom the criminal act is perpetrated. And in that regard, we're always disposed. When I say we, I'm talking of those of us who practice in the temple of justice, to continually observe that fair hearing, fair treatment to all sides. And this issue is part of what the defense always put up, particularly in our client. And the valid question would be, why is it always attractive and recognized when it is raised? It's not usually granted as a matter of course, like my colleague alluded to. If you are unable to establish that the ailment you complain about is not such that can be handled within the competencies and facilities available in our country, even in the prison, well, I understand it's now correctional homes, ought to have standard medical facilities to deal with health situations and all that. If you're unable to establish that the health situation you're complaining about is not such that can be handled within there, then chances are that you'll be granted that leave to seek adequate medical attention anywhere other than the prison facilities. But as it is easier to deal with the challenges of other issues other than that which an accused person is facing. And considering that what he faces after the full trial is conviction. Conviction could range from mere sentencing to capital punishment. So he or she does everything to at least ameliorate or possibly escape that conviction. Now, your question is valid because it touches on the state of our health system. To what extent is it easy for every Dick and Harry and at every moment, every turn and curve in criminal proceeding to raise the question of health attention? And once it is raised, you likely most often going to get it, particularly from politically exposed and elite category of accused persons. Why is it always easy? Why is it? It is because you can easily fault the standard of our medical facility. And my friend got it right on spot when he said, look, Mr. President is the best person to answer this question. He has always patronized medical attention, medical treatment outside this country, even with respect to, and it's not peculiar to him. Virtually all the presidents and heads of states were found. I remember when General Babangida was in Germany for a very long time over radiculopathy, a kind of health situation he had with his legs.
And we're hoping
so on
that,
and so forth.
we're hoping
Yar'Adua died
yes.
abroad. Obasanjo was consistently outside this country, and so on and so forth. So it is that they don't even have faith in the medical facilities, just as their children are outside this country schooling. So we are here just to be killing ourselves and nothing happens.
I get your point precisely. Many Nigerians are concerned also that the accused are not also taking advantage of this loophole. A situation where everyone who's been accused of corruption seems to have one health issue or the other. But it appears the case of the Sheikh is different. There are proven facts that there are pellets of bullets in some parts of his body. The wife is said to need some change in her knee cap and all of that. But what we are hearing now from the Sheikh himself is that the federal government is collaborating with the U.S. government to compromise the court order. They say it is the FG's word against the Sheikh. The federal government says, oh, the Sheikh wants to be lodged in a 5-star hotel. He wants to receive visitors. He doesn't want security officers around him. What exactly do you think is happening here?
Now, if you ask me, I will tell you that a sick man that needs true medical attention would concentrate mainly on his medical health first before any other extraneous factor. Life is so important to the extent that you won't even see those extraneous factors. So if El-Zakzaky, for example, is seen more than attending to his health, it means that there is something wrong somewhere. I hope you understand that. Now you have a major health issue. Now you are in the hospital. Are you being attended to? His argument is not that he is not being attended to. Then what is the problem? As it is now, you are still under prosecution. You are not as like any other Nigerian. So you must understand that there are times and conditions. You must also understand the fact that it is not yet Uhuru. So the government must do everything to ensure that you don't use that as an opportunity to either elongate your stay there or as an opportunity to escape. Don't forget that there is another international dimension to it, the Iranian intervention. And of course, don't also forget that the integrity of India itself is at stake. So the whole thing is that the government is not even going to hold El-Zakzaky as much other than the government of India. They handed over this man to the government of India. So it is not how much of security would DSS provide in the hospital. It is the Indian security force that will be responsible. So they must ensure that, one, he does not have any contact that would either lead to his escape in any way whatsoever. Because understand that when it comes to security at that level, anything can happen. You've heard of even president being kidnapped. So it is very possible. And that is why you see that whatever is coming from the camp of El-Zakzaky, I am not expecting that it should be. They should be concerned about how are they taking care of this man's health. That is the main thing. Every other thing should be secondary.
We're told that the choice of Medenta Hospital in India was the Sheikh's choice, as advised by his own personal doctor. But is there anything wrong in him asking that whatever is being done as regards his treatment be supervised by his personal doctors that he can trust?
Well, I'm happy that you mentioned this, that because I've had cause to ask whether the hospital was imposed on him. As a matter of fact, I put that directly to his counsel, who was our former boss and friend. Because in that case, the narrative would change. But if it was his own volition, by his election, that that particular hospital was identified, then it will mean that he has submitted to the professional competence of that hospital, and then will be bound by the facilities, including medical personnel that will be provided to attend to him. I recognize that this has become a long-drawn, situation, one that lends itself to all manner of theatrics, again designed to weigh in favor of whoever it is that is pressing the buttons. And like my colleague did say, it's not a simple medical routine checkup. It is one that now has serious bilateral implications.
Apparently.
It has legal implications. It has medical implications. It has political implications. You remember one Chapo, the notorious drug baron, who even escaped right from the prison where in the almighty United States of America by just spiriting himself away through the bathroom and through a tunnel and escaped. I understand he has just been convicted, but all of those will tell you that high-profile detainees or persons are checked. Jeffrey Epstein in U.S. just committed what? Suicide, or allegedly. And part of the reason why that was possible was alleged to be poor surveillance on him. And therefore, if there is a duty on the government, the receiving government, to take care of this particular person, it will not add up to suggest that such a person will be at liberty as though there were no responsibility on the part of the receiving government.
You mentioned expert now, and there are allegations of power play as well. Don't you think that might have reinforced the Sheikh's commitment to find some people that he can trust to supervise whatever medicine or Medicare that has been administered?
Well, that is within reasonable speculation, and I think that if we are mindful of the need to play down on all of these theatrics, that shouldn't be a problem. After all, the government that allowed him to leave will also have made some contingent arrangements to ensure that it's not just about escaping. If anything happens to him, untoward to him now, heads will roll because meanings will be read into it. Apparently. And it will be assumed that it was not just deliberate, but orchestrated to occur the same way.
Let me read out a quote here, believed to have been from some of the recordings of the Sheikh from the hospital. It will not be possible for us to come out of detention just to get medical attention and now find ourselves in another form of detention. We won't submit ourselves to people we don't trust. There's a need for us to go back home since it has been agreed that we should travel out to get medical attention, and India is not a place we can trust. So he's saying there are other countries that have volunteered to take care of his treatment, including Malaysia, Indonesia, and Turkey. Thankfully, he didn't mention Iran. But then, don't you think
But
that...
how do you reconcile that with what you earlier said, that he elected to be treated
Yes,
in that
he
particular
did,
hospital?
but apparently he's saying that things have changed now. My concern is, what role should India play as regards security? Because he's saying that India is treating him like a criminal, and the fact that he's not been convicted yet, there shouldn't be so much presence of security around him.
Now, what is the definition of being treated like a criminal? That you have your hospital being guarded. Is that the definition of being treated like a criminal? In DSS custody that you were you free? Were you moving up and down?
But he mentioned trust.
Are you there?
He,
Now
he
listen.
cannot trust. He's the one who's there.
No,
We are not there. He's the one who understands what's happening around him.
let's-
If he can't
let's-
trust the system, you don't think it is right for him to voice out?
Number one, a voluntary non-fit injury. You voluntarily decided to go to that hospital, not that it was forced on you. Now, government has to play its own part by ensuring that whilst in that hospital, people that ought not to have access to you don't have access to you. That is the first rule in security. You know, it is called access control. Now, also, they must also ensure that you as a person, you do not do anything that will jeopardize security. So by so doing, they are not saying he is not saying that doctors are not attending to him. And I want to also say this very quickly. Ethically, no doctor will allow his mate to supervise his work. We are counsel. Are you there with me? Now, if he has a client, I cannot supervise what he does with his client, except he invites me. I don't know if you understand.
You don't think this is a peculiar situation?
No, it is
So it is different from... This is not just the usual doctor-patient scenario.
It is not. It is not. Even in a usual doctor-patient scenario, there must be an understanding. Because what you are doing is that you are spiting the professional prowess of the doctor that is attending to you. It's just like he has filed, he has prepared a pleading. Then his client will now take the pleading he has prepared to be filed and now bring it to me to say, please, can you edit this thing? Did this lawyer do the right thing? If he gets to know that, it's enough for him to throw out the client and the pleading out of his office.
So the Inner High Commission has tweeted, it has actually denied reports that he was collaborating with security services in Nigeria to detain or put the sheikh in custody. I'm reading one of the quotes now. Such reports are not true. India has always been responsive to humanitarian requests. Medical treatment request was received from both El-Zakzaky and the government of Nigeria, and we readily agreed no other connotation should be attached to the matter. How exactly should India treat the sheikh now? Is it as a patient or as someone who is in custody here in Nigeria? But just before you answer that, let's take a short break, and then we'll be returned to talk more about this. Stay with us. You're watching This Morning. We'll open the phone lines in a moment now to be able to hear your opinion. The IMN leader is already in India, but there are controversies as regards his treatment. He's alleging that he's been treated as a criminal. There's too much security around him. He wants his personal doctors to supervise the treatment that he's going to get at the hospital there in India. Gentlemen, thank you for staying the course on the program. How exactly should India treat the sheikh? Is it as a patient? Should they treat him as a criminal or someone who is accused in detention? what kind of disposition is expected of India
Well,
at this time?
when you use the word a criminal, you presuppose that somebody has been convicted. That has not happened in this case. So in my view, India should treat El-Zakzaky as a patient who is under trial in a foreign country.
Would that include...
And therefore take every precautionary measure to ensure that you do not jeopardize or compromise the express terms of the order.
Would that include
which must have been served on them?
Complementing the role of the DSS in providing local police security for him?
Look, Nigeria is a sovereign country. And the fact that a criminal trial has taken an international dimension does not preclude, as it were, the activities of Nigeria with respect to that process. And in bilateral relationships, there are moments when the need arises that both countries will agree on the modalities to handle a particular situation.
That's right.
And I imagine that this is one of such situations. To what extent is Nigeria going to be completely comfortable leaving an accused person undergoing trial, such as El-Zakzaky and the wife, in India without any corresponding security arrangement, however peripheral? In the same vein, to what extent can India stand completely aloof with respect to such a volatile situation imported all the way from Nigeria into India without partaking in the security arrangement? So at the end of the day, you will see that the need has arisen for a middle point. That middle point is the collaboration of these security agencies to be able to provide what, in their view, is an adequate security to secure the situation pending when the treatment, which is the basis of the order, is completed. My advice to him would be that, look, it's a very creative request that he's making. But you cannot be talking about supervising the medical treatment. They can participate. They can observe and participate. There are instances where, for instance, an autopsy is to be conducted. It is usually the case arising from suspicion that instigates the victim to say, no, we have heard that these are the pathologies, but we want to also provide our own pathologies to observe
the process.
They won't go there to take over. They possibly would be there to ensure that the procedures are followed just so to get to the desired end.
We have a statement from the federal government. This is from the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Information. And there's a part of it that says the Sheikh... Yes, the Sheikh requested that his passport be handed over to him by the state officials, and he would not, the officials would not budge to his pressure. The situation became worse in India as he refused to subject himself to preliminary medical check. In addition, he demanded free movement and access to visitors of all kinds, as well as requested to be allowed to check in a 5-star hotel of being admitted in the, instead of being admitted in the hospital. Are this within the rights of the Sheikh at this time? If these allegations are indeed true.
My first reaction is I read it and I was a little bit surprised and embarrassed, but not too surprised because I also understand the way and manner some of these organizations operate. Naturally, his passport can never be handed over to him. That one is a non-negotiable thing, especially because it is a check to prevent his escape. Let me use that word in quote now. Now that he opted or he requested for a 5-star hotel, I don't know how far that will be true, because government at times also know how to use propaganda.
Let me hold you for a minute to take this caller. He's been waiting for a while. Good morning, Joshua.
Good morning, Nifemi.
Good morning.
And good morning to your guests.
Good morning.
I want to speak to the issue from the angle of one of the contributors. He talked about El-Zakzaky being in a very critical situation before he was flown out of Nigeria. If his health situation, as told to us, was true, then I think the people, himself and the organization and everyone should be concerned with his sound health.
Yes, sir.
All these matters of my doctor, the facility, this and this, do they speak directly to him getting a good health? Or is he really sick? So I felt the whole idea about the man being flown abroad was primarily for him to be treated, because we felt the facilities in Nigeria is not good enough to treat him. So let the focus be on that. I think that's very, very important. This man is a high-profile person of interest to everyone. This El-Zakzaky problem can cause a world war. That is the truth. So we cannot be joking with a matter like this and be playing politics with it. If he wants to escape, he will escape from Nigeria, not from India. So the idea of, okay, if we get to India, we start another story, the medical team is not good and all that. I think they should drop all those things and let's return back to the fact that he needs to get well, to be okay, and return alive to Nigeria so that he can continue his trial.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your
very
Joshua, from Wale in Ogun State. You were reacting to
Yes,
the fact that he
I was
requested for a
just
five-star
saying
hotel.
that at times, you know, when things like this come from the government circle, some of us, we don't consume everything hook, line, and sinker. It's unimaginable. That's just the truth. I don't think that El-Zakzaky is that unintelligent to request for a five-star hotel. I don't think so. Yes, saying that, okay, I need my international passport, it's sellable. But saying that I need a five-star hotel, I'm not too sure. So some of us are a little bit skeptical about all those. I expect some element of truth and some element of propaganda in the whole thing. But the fact remains that, like the last caller said, I think that this whole thing is uncalled for. If this man is truly sick, the way we were made to believe that, in short, I was thinking that it was at the point of life and death, you know, so frail, so fragile, so a lot of medical whatever, and we were like,
should just submit
immediately
himself
he gets to India,
to,
he would
yes,
submit himself to all manner of medical things. The truth is that no government, Nigerian government will not allow him to die.
They will say for someone who has
Indian
spent
government will not allow
years
him
in
to die.
detention is going to be a little bit suspicious as regards any kind of care that he gets. But let's take this call from Ikeja. Good morning, Judge.
Good morning to Malaki and Tony.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Listen, I think there's an adage in the place where I was born that if a woman does not marry two husbands, she doesn't value the one she has. When El-Zakzaky was in protective custody in Nigeria, the members of his sect were protesting that she's being maltreated, she needs to be given. Now, she has gone to a hospital of his choice, and is complaining that he wants particular doctors to treat him. There's something that is possibly not clear to the gentleman. He is not on bail. If he had been bail, he have to apply for a passport. The court will have to grant that one for him to travel with the passport on his own and come back. He's still in detention as he's under treatment there. How does he want the government to allow him to go to a five-star hotel? Is five-star hotel a hospital? And look at the countries he's choosing. He wants to go to Indonesia. He wants to go to Afghanistan.
It did not mention Afghanistan.
Hospitals in those war-torn countries. Are they better than the hospitals?
I think it mentioned
in Nigeria?
Indonesia and Turkey
It
and
just
Malaysia.
shows that medical treatment, truth being told, medical treatment is not the reason why they have been protesting.
It's all right, Judge.
But it should be made.
Well, if I may just intervene,
Let's go ahead, Jerry.
I think, you see, this is a quality of interventions that come from the Nigerian public that keep reassuring me that our people are alive to what the issues are. And then, coming to my friend's suggestion, there is a limit to which propaganda will even work. Now, this is the point. If El-Zakzaky wishes to be attended to in a different hospital, it will not just lie in his mouth there to say so. What will happen is that you need to alter the basis and condition of your, presence in India in the first place. In other words, you need to go back to the same court to now seek another order
From the court.
seeking to substitute the one you recommended to yet another one on the basis of what you are complaining about. So it's not that easy. And then we need to, be a bit serious, because when it does happen as he's putting it, the blame again will go back to, we have a very weak system. How can somebody who is in custody go to another place, and the story became a different thing? He is there pursuant to an order of court. In short, if he lives there to yet another court, which is not, another hospital, which is not captured in that order, that would be contempt of the order of the court.
That is if the hospital is captured in the order initially.
I'm saying if he lives where he is now, which in my view was where he was mentioned specifically in the order granting him leave to leave Nigeria for treatment in India, that will be contemptuous of the order of the court.
So we have the Nigerian government, we have El-Zakzaky and his group, as well as India. But before we get that, let's take this call from Kaduna State. Good morning, Pius.
Good morning, presenter.
Good morning.
Good morning to your guest there.
Good morning.
Yes, so this issue of El-Zakzaky is a wake-up call for the Nigerian government to sit and start doing the right thing, more especially to fix our own hospital in Nigeria. Does that mean that it cannot treat any of our so-called big men here in Nigeria except when they travel out? So please, what will the common man do? The common man should continue to stay in Nigeria and die, and they are the people that are leading us. Whenever they want to seek for any medical help, they will say, abroad. All these things must put at least a stop. We must put a stop to all these things. So that is it. This is my own little submission. And El-Zakzaky and federal government, all of them should just tread with caution, because we don't want to see any crisis in this country. We need peace in Nigeria. Good morning, Nigerians.
Good morning, Pius. We established the issue of quality healthcare earlier, and the fact that people have to travel out each time they have issues like this, especially the rich, because it is the rich that has the capacity to go outside the country for medical care. For those who do not have that financial empowerment, they are stuck with the system. There are some who had even jokingly said that the only way to better the healthcare facility in Nigeria is to ban the political class from, having access to medical care outside the country. Do you subscribe to that?
Well, the issue of ban, I don't subscribe to it, because there is no country anywhere in the world that is self-sufficient in anything. So let's come to terms with that. There are areas of specialization. So you can't talk about outright ban, but I expect that we should be able to have developed our medical facility to the extent that we have an average of at least 70%, facilities, the state-of-the-art facility. If you look at diagnostics in this country now, it's picking up. Why? Because foreigners, they have seen the loopholes. They are coming in, setting up big-time diagnostics. Then you now have specialist hospitals coming up. Nothing wrong with that. But the government
I'm going to have to hold you again, Tony. We have a caller from Okorafo. We have a Kora for calling in from Arochukwu.
Arochukwu.
Good morning, Mazi.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Barrister Malaki and Barrister Tony.
Arochukwu.
Honestly, Arochukwu is where there's no fancy in Arochukwu. You see, there is no hospital without amenity ward, which is the first classroom, which serves as a 5-star hotel. Let's face that, because there's no hospital in this world that doesn't have amenity ward. Even in Arochukwu here now, we have amenity ward that if you want separate air conditions, everything, in terms of what you want to eat, everything. Consultants will come in to see you, that's professors. Not a question of all this man, just keep it. Now, what we need in this country is we should be prayerful. That is the only solution. Like what Barrister Malaki raised here. Barrister Malaki is an issue that on the chart from Abuja that indicated that the El-Zakzaky is going to choose a particular hospital in India. And there's no way you can go back there and change the hospital from that very place. No matter this, there's no authority, except the court have to do that.
Yeah.
So, but we have to look into the same as I said. Here's a very important issue, which the government has to look into. Because what we need in this country is prayer. We have prayer. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day in Lagos.
Glad to have you calling again, Mazi. How do you see the major stakeholders, the Nigerian government, the Indian government, and the accused himself? What roles do you see them play? How do we tread carefully such that this issue does not escalate?
Well, for me, it will just be to remain focused on the order of the court. The order of the court, I imagine, is to go seek medical treatment in this particular hospital, presumably for this period of time, and then return back to face your trial. Now, that has some implications. The implications are that within the time under review, the accused person shall not escape. The accused person should also not die. And therefore, if these are the assumptions, it will mean that every supervening authority, including the governments that you have mentioned, has a responsibility to ensure that all of this do not happen. And how do you go about it? First is that you cannot have somebody of that clout with enough international network to be at large. You must take precautionary measures, including security, to ensure that he doesn't escape. You must also be careful not to stretch things to ridiculous extreme in such a way that the reason for which he's brought there in the first place does not become compounded.
I get a point. Let me take this call from Victoria Island. Good morning, David.
Yeah, good morning, Ifemi.
You're welcome.
Yeah. My name is David from there.
All right, go ahead with the contribution, David.
Okay, yeah. Ifemi, I remember when this administration, when the president came in 2015, he made a kind of proclamation that no public officer will go outside this country for medical checkup or for medical treatment. But as we have it now, reverse is the case. So that's number one. Secondly, I want to ask our lawyers in the House, what happened to the first judgment granting this man a bail? So what happened? I don't think this judgment has been effected. So what do you think is happening? So that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, David. You don't think event has overtaken that?
Yeah,
The 2016
that's just the straightforward answer. Event has overtaken that, and one thing we must understand is that when issues of national security comes to play, a lot of other considerations are put in motion. For El-Zakzaky's case, you will discover that even when he was granted bail, the activities of his followers were always negating, the bail itself. It generates more fear that what happened if this man is eventually released. That's not an excuse not to obey court orders anyway. But you are talking of a conflict between serious nationals. Like Malaki said, you see, a man of that level that is able to also garner international clout, attention and the like, you don't just handle him like any other person. You know, Showore, for example, is in detention. I will tell you that in no distant time, Showore will come out, and it doesn't make any difference. He will. It's not the first time of him going to detention and the like. He will come out. He would even become more celebrated. It's not a security risk. It's just that the government, just as far as I'm concerned, became overzealous.
Let's take this call
now,
very quickly from Kebbi. Good morning, Ayo.
Yeah, good morning.
You have just about 30 seconds. Go ahead with the contribution.
Please, my contribution is just to buttress what Payo said earlier. Please, our federal government should try and upgrade our own health facility in this country. Let's have something that common citizens like me and others can have access to health in this country.
That's all right.
Help us use your medium to further tell federal government to do this. Mr. President went abroad for treatment the other day. Now, El-Zakzaky is doing. What about common people here in Nigeria? Thank you.
You have to go to the general hospital. Just a minute. There's a lot to talk about.
I like that.
In a limited time. But I'm concerned about two things happened to have calmed the tension that came with the very many protests we saw in Abuja, the prescription of the group, and now the obedience to the court order. There are people who are referring to the prescription of IPOB and how that seemed to have settled to an extent the security challenge in the southeast. Does the prescription of IMN, do you see it following the same suit, solving this problem permanently?
Well, that was at the discretion of the government based on security report they got. There's what we call smoldering smoke. The fact that you haven't seen the fire doesn't mean it's not brewing. There are some extraneous steps that are taken by government. Sometimes you also wonder whether they've thought it through properly. My concern would be this emphasis that it seems to me that a couple of callers actually joined this program. We have established that point, that the reason why it is very convenient and easy for people, particularly accused persons, to raise the issue of medical facilities in Nigeria is because I just lost a friend.
And it's an indictment on all of us.
I just lost a friend from the same general hospital, teaching hospital you talked about, just 2 days ago. This is a young girl of 11 years who had been to the same India for cancer. I didn't know children have cancer. Came back, and another clot came up. The same hospital here said they can do it. Went into it, and then suddenly found out that they can't handle it. Closed up this girl, and in a number of days, this girl was gone.
And that is why our people find it hard to have trust in the system here.
Let's
take our last caller very quickly from Abuja. Good morning, Sam.
Yeah, good morning, my audience and speakers in the studio here.
Go ahead, you have just about 30 seconds, Sam.
Yes, please. To quickly go straight to what I want to say, I think we are talking about this society. My own contribution there is that he's talking about his being held up and then still treated as a prisoner or as a criminal in India. One thing is very paramount. The information we are getting from them is that is the information we are getting from. What is the source of that information? If somebody can be a criminal or tied up in somewhere as a criminal or treated somewhere as a criminal, and yet he has access to or the right and liberty to speak, for which every one of us in Nigeria here is hearing what he's saying. How can you now say that you are still treated as a criminal and as a prisoner or whatever in India, whereas you are speaking out and people here in Nigeria here are hearing you? Invariably, I think what I want to say is that the man is not actually concerned about himself. He has an interior motive for which he intends to escape. And for the fact that he's being monitored and everything, that is his fear, because he's not given that fair opportunity to escape. And that is why he's not coming up with this logic.
I believe that's your opinion, and you have a right to express that. Gentlemen, we have to go now.
They would have gagged his mouth.
What are your final comments on this?
Well, I think that as it is, a lot of wisdom needs to be applied by the government, especially the government. And the government must also understand that a lot is at stake, especially when it comes to national security. We don't want another sect of Boko Haram. So El-Zakzaky must be treated safely and must also come back safely. We are not talking about natural death, which nobody can prevent, but anything that has to do with man-made artificial death, the government at every level must ensure that it doesn't happen, and it must come back.
We have to go now.
It must come back.
I must say a very big thank you to Tony Ofoeto, lawyer, and also from the International Institute of Professional Security, the National President, Committee for Defense of Human Rights, Malaki Ogumado. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
On the program.
Thank you.
Well, that's it today. Uncle Yeri will be back tomorrow with another exciting one. God bless Nigeria. I am Nifemi Oguntoye.